Hey everybody, it's Lori here. We are on session 2 of Camp Create for MFT. This is day 4. My topic today for your craft activity is monochromatic magic. So we're going to create a card with 1 stamp and 1 die, and it's going to be monochromatic. So let's get started. All right, so what you'll need for the craft activity today is the Sweet Hello dynamic. This is such a fun die. It has the sentiment and a shadow both, and we're going to be using both of those. I've also got some vellum, some white cardstock, some light gray cardstock. Of course, you're going to need a score buddy. If you want to score your card, you can do that without, but I always use mine. Got some watermark ink, and then I'm going to be using cement gray ink from My Favorite Things. This is a premium dye ink. And the stamp we're going to be using for today's card is the Poppies Background. I already have it placed in my Misty and ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a piece of the gray cardstock in. This is just cut in half, so it's 5.5 by 8.5, and I'll put that here in my Misty, and then we're going to use the watermark ink first because we're going to be heat embossing this image with white embossing powder, and then I will stamp that down with my Misty. All right, so that gave a really good impression, so I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss this with white powder, and I'll be right back. All right, so I've got that heat embossed with white powder, and that looks amazing. I love the detail in this stamp. Now, I know I said I was going to be using cement gray, but I've made an executive decision as I'm going here, and I think I'm just gonna use the watermark embossing ink again, and I'm gonna use that gray. It's gonna be a nice light gray to keep this card monochromatic. Obviously, in the past, if you've watched the Camp Creates that I've done, I always use a color for the monochromatic cards, but today we're just going gray. There's so many different shades of gray, and it's my favorite color. I'm gonna press this down again. If you can see, that just gives a nice it's almost like a coordinating ink with the cardstock. Just brings it a little bit darker, but still gives us a soft gray color. To better explain the end result of this card, I wanna go ahead and show you the finished card. I wanna cut these in 1-inch strips to where the pattern still works together. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut around this stamped image exactly on the lines of the stamp, and that way we can make sure that we cut both panels the same. So that's the full stamp right there, and I just cut on the very edges, so I know that this is one solid stamped image, and then I'll do the exact same with the watermarked piece. So now that I have these panels, I'm going to go ahead, and I want this to be on an even line, just to make sure that my stripes are even. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to slide this over to 5 1/4 and just cut off this tiny little strip on both pieces. That way we know we're even. Okay, from here I'm just going to start scooting it over 1 inch and cutting in strips. So from 5 1/4 we'll go to 4 1/4 to 3 1/4 to 2 1/4 and then down to 1 1/4. All right, so now we have these laid out again, just so you can see. This is basically gives you 2 4-inch panels. And what I'm gonna do is just swap the 2nd and the 4th pieces of each. So this just gives us the variegated look, keeping with the monochromatic theme, and it gives us a fun way to use these backgrounds. I'm going to use some Georgia Pacific cardstock. It's a lot thinner of a cardstock to mount these strips down to, so we can add them to our card base. You could use regular cardstock for this. I just wanted to add a thinner cardstock so it would not make our card as bulky. Go ahead and add some ATG to these panels and just line them up so that image works together and flows through the card front. I'm going to save this set for later, and that way I can make a second card. So now that I have this all attached, I'm going to go ahead and cut it down, cutting off 1/8 of an inch on each side, and that way we have a 3 3/4 inch panel by 5 inch. Now I'll go ahead and score my card base at 5.5 inches. This gives you 1/4 of an inch around the background stamp. I like to use fun foam to add a little bit of dimension from my card front to the card base. I always find myself with extra chunks, so I cut these down just to fit the back of this card. I've placed ATG on the back of the card front, and then I'm adding in the fun foam. I'll add another layer of ATG, and then I'm going to center this right here on the card base. Now that we have our card base done, we'll go ahead and work on the sentiment. I'm going to use the shadow side of the die with Vellum, and then I'm going to use the other side. I've got white cardstock with double-sided adhesive on the back. So I'm going to die cut the hello there. I'm going to grab that Vellum and I'll be right back. So I can pop this Vellum shadow right out just like that. And then for the double-sided adhesive, all I'm doing is peeling away the cardstock from that double-sided adhesive, and that makes the back of this die cut ready to adhere. It's nice and sticky. I'm going to place this H down first and then go from there. Just like that. So they're stuck together perfectly and ready to go on the card. One thing I really like to do when I add Vellum behind a die cut is to raise it up just a little bit so it mutes the colors underneath. So what I'll do is I'll run the hello die through my die cut machine once more with fun foam that is backed with double-sided adhesive. So I'll pop this out of the fun foam. This time I'm going to take liquid adhesive and just add a little bit to the front of this. I want to be able to slide this around the back side of the Vellum, and that way it lines up perfectly with this front white cardstock. If that doesn't make sense, it'll make sense in just a minute. So I'll turn this over to the back side. I'm going to turn this over, and again I'm going to add these pieces together. I'm going to line the fun foam up with that cardstock on the front. The liquid glue part comes in now because I can slide it around just to make sure that we're hiding the fun foam behind the cardstock. Adding the fun foam on the back then just adds as a little bit of a dimensional to go behind the sentiment. You can give that a second to dry, and then you can just go in and peel off the backing, your double-sided adhesive, and then your sentiment is ready to be added to the front of your card. I'm putting this a little bit to the right, and that way the tail of the O sticks off just a little bit, and then I'm going to press that down. Earlier today I used my Nouveau crystal drops. These are the ivory seashell, and I made a few little pearls to add to my card front. So I'm just going to take my little palette knife and pop these off, place them on the card, and now I'm going to go in with some liquid adhesive, pick these up, and add a little bit of glue right down to the card. You don't need very much glue at all. It'll stick down nice and tight. I hope that you've been inspired today for the monochromatic magic activity. Definitely stop over to the MFT blog and link up your own card. We love when you guys can play along. Don't forget to stop in tomorrow for day 5. There's another fun activity ready and waiting for you guys to check out. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.